all sides. I was really happy with the progress and the transparency from everyone involved, and I felt like the discussion was really respectful from everyone, which is what I'm really happy about. So it's awesome.
Fantastic. Okay, I want to touch specifically on the most recent message sent in the TC feedback document thread.
Okay.
And I am effectively what I'm going to do here is I'm going to convey how this message comes across, even if it wasn't the intent, of course, which we all know tends to not always come across in chat all the time. With all of the positive intentions of this and the discussion we've had and everything else around it, this message came across very negatively, more than anything else, actually. The document was the most free-floating positive thing in the world compared to how this message was received. So I just want to open with that.
Go on.
The principle behind the message is something that I quite literally proposed at the quarterly meeting last year, which is hosting monthly Q&A sessions in this server with whoever from tournament committee can effectively make it. So your request for like an open voice forum is not unfounded, and it's not new in the sense that I've already brought this up before. So I want to open with that.
Not a problem. That's completely fine.
So that has been on there. The part of this message, and I'm gonna put this as lightly as I can because I can be blunt sometimes, is the line specifically about individual tournament committee members being evaluated by the community before being allowed to select new representatives. Now, I get where the intention behind this is coming from, and I get why the position is where it is. But you have to see that this comes across as whoever is doing this evaluation has some higher authority than any alternative that currently exists in the tournament committee.
Yeah.
Which is how it comes across. That's just how it comes across.
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to speak first?
It's just that I can reword the message where the intent is that there is supposed to be an OSU staff member, just like Ephemeral, that does conduct this, because of course, having the community conduct this is crazy. I completely agree, and that definitely means that this part of the message was worded improperly, which is my fault. And I think it's really important that the person, like I'm so sorry if I keep pronouncing his name wrong, Ephemeral, or the head staff, one of the OSU staff, is the person that does conduct this. He's already reached out to me and asked about individual cases, which I will send to him directly. I already mentioned previously, but this involves inactive members like Yaze and the entirety of the case of T1G. But in these cases, yes, it would be an internal evaluation. That doesn't mean that people, like including me, that are not part of TCOM, can submit evidence towards the OSU staff, because anyone is allowed to report somebody for malicious intent or bad faith. So that's one thing. But I apologize again if there was any miswording in the fact that it would be like a community-driven evaluation, because there's a crazy amount of bias between every single person, which I definitely agree cannot be sorted out, nor supported by like another person, pretty much. What were you gonna say?
I mean, I was gonna basically say the same thing. I just wanted to ask if you wanted to say it. But yeah, I mean, our idea was that whoever was holding this evaluation did in fact have more authority than TCOM, not just like assuming that we would have the community do it, but like an already existing person that already has more authority than TCOM to oversee the process. That was like kind of the plan. I do agree that the message does come off as a little like offensive is not the word. It's like aggressive, I would say.
That's an appropriate word, I think. It's blunt.
yeah, most of it came down to actually me kind of just inspiring shit because like I also like I'm pretty sure we all here for the most part have jobs and lives, and I didn't want this to stall out for a long time. Like I actually didn't want this situation to like take a week, 2 weeks to like get any response at all. So I told Chip like let's be a little blunt and let's send it out with like I guess a little spice. Just like let's send something out like a statement. Let's send a statement out. That was the whole point. Let's make a statement so that we can get at least an actual formal reply to our statement. And that was the entire point of the message. So it did came off as a little aggressive and not really the intention. More so like the way we wanted to kind of rush things in a way. Like I said, we do wanted the representative to be someone, like the evaluator to be someone already above existing like hierarchies, I guess you could say in the game. But even aside that fact, we just wanted to have a public space where we could have all TICO members explain their sides without it having to be a chat, because like 16 people in one chat, like that's a lot.
Chip,
Also,
I would.
like, yeah,
I'm sorry,
like
I want to
16 people.
interrupt. I would
No,
clear
go ahead.
that message really quick because that does not really exist. That's just it's not a thing that exists internally. Like if you are going purely by the OSU team itself, there are plenty of, I mean, if you're looking for that sort of thing, you're looking at F, you're looking at me, you're looking at Walla, you're looking at, there's plenty. So, you know, if you're purely looking at team and that distinction in terms of who has the power to make those decisions, it's a far larger group. Which is why there are certain of us that are more outspoken and are making decisions and announcements a lot of the time, just because that's the way we keep it. But there is still a lot that goes behind it. So there's that message is not entirely correct, and I think F kind of went over it too. Like we just don't work that way internally. There's no authority levels. Like, yes, there are restrictions because some information is on need to know, obviously for privacy, but
Okay. I have a question then. If this message doesn't work out, how can we ensure that TC representatives are held accountable for their actions?
I'm also wondering the same thing, by the way. That's something I wanted to comment on, because there's no accountability in our.
This is definitely like a point that we wanted to bring up. Right now, technically, the only way to hold TC accountable is literally through community backlash, and we've seen time and time that it doesn't really do anything. Nor does it do anything for the community, nor does it do anything for TCOM. It kind of screaming at the void, and then nothing happens.
So the whole thing with using the term hold TC accountable implies that the decisions that are being made are made out of malice or in bad intent, which is just not the case. At least I hope it's not, and it doesn't seem that way from my perspective, as you know, being able to see everything. So effectively, to make this statement in the thread where you're asking several people who have community contributor badges to demonstrate commitment to the community comes across as weird. Now, that's not to say that puts any of them above it for that status, but again, a lot of what you're mentioning here implies that anyone has ever made a decision out of malice or with bad intent or to favor someone else or otherwise, which is not the case. So our situation then comes down to, which is the part that everyone can agree with, is the transparency and how do we make that more obvious and how do we alleviate that part of it? Because it's understandable that if it's not obvious, it's able to be misconstrued and viewed in a light that is not positive, because that's just the nature of not knowing something. Being in the unknown inspires uncertainty and fear and all of these other bad emotions that people don't like to feel, and it's even easier online when it's something that everyone puts a lot of time into, and that tension continues to rise.
I don't disagree. I would like to go back to the point where you said that you believe that it is impossible for TC members to act in bad faith or to...
I did not say it was impossible. I said it is...
You believe
it is
likely
not apparent. It is not apparent to me that any member has ever acted out of the interests in the community.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I can mostly agree, I would say. Like, I would say it's a nitpick. I would say there could be cases, but I would say they're the majority for sure. However, I do want to make clear that I don't think holding someone accountable has to do with them acting out of malice. I think I can hold people accountable for their mistakes regardless. Like, you can be well-intentioned and still, like, fuck up. And, like, I still need to hold you accountable for that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think this term has to be exclusively used for, oh, people are being bad. Like, I think people can be very well-intentioned and still not do a good job. And that's what we mean by holding accountability. Like, someone has to tell you that currently the job's not going very well, and that's why we want other people in.
I mean, give me an example. Give me an example where switching a member of tournament committee out for some randomly selected user would result in a better outcome.
It could be just a hypothetical. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll be grasping.
I'm looking for a hypothetical. I'm looking for a hypothetical.
In this case,
if you were to do that,
if we were to do that, I would feel like a reset of tournament committee reputation will definitely help everyone. You have so much work to build in terms of PR, and I actually think it's a hill that is impossible to climb. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, the image you currently have as an organization, as a committee to the entire community might be unfixable. I'm just gonna say it out there. So a complete reset would make this process a lot smoother to introduce like fade into people again. Because I think that is a very important thing to have as in a community-driven game, for people to trust the ones that are overseeing your community. It's like just incredibly important. I don't know.
I would like
to some.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all good.
Like there are, and that's unprecedented internally. And I just want to make that known. Like, for any group we have, BNs, NATs, GMTs. That's just not how it works. And you can take that up with Peppy. But in terms of, obviously, even in tournament committee, there are certain like structural members that just will not go away. And that's just the nature of the work that we have. And I'm not going to get into it publicly because there are privacy concerns for certain of them. But it is. I guess it could be obvious as to which members that would be referring to, or maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's because we're internal and, you have more views over things. But
yeah, I think like Chip, for example, is able to tell, and I think I could probably also.
Chip could probably DM me a list of people he thinks that could never be removed, and I could either say yes or no privately. But like, I just, in terms of like privacy,
we understand. But I mean, it's just like it's kind of tough because like. That's giving someone a vulnerability that I don't think they should have.
It's less an invulnerability and more there are trusted systems in place that there is involvement beyond tournament committee that people just don't see, and they never will. And it's the reason that internal processes work the way that they do. So switching out some members of tournament committee may work, and honestly, that just comes with time. A lot of the time, people step down, people switch out, we look for new members, which, didn't happen for a very long time, and there were a lot of, the group that just tends to stick around for a long while, and then you have stints where people start to pick up and leave and move on and do that sort of thing, and then, you have the need for new members to take their places, but there's also the point of why Stage and I really decided to run this cycle of applications was to have greater outreach. The largest community ask of tournament committee for a long time, which is why we ran these apps, is more reach into the sides of the community that don't necessarily have as much of an opinion on tournament committee right now as they probably should, which is why we were specifically actively looking for people, and we put it on the apps as a known thing that we were looking for players and those who spoke other languages on top of that, because that was our big ask. We need views over both of those areas. And that's how you start to build it up. And then once you have more members, you start to approach that, aspect of when your sample size is so great, your result tends to approach the mean. Like, that's just math. So decisions will effectively become even more neutral and even more reflective of the entire community's values with the more members you have. So to go through and delete existing members just because they were there in a period of a lot of restructuring in a team that, in comparison, is very new compared to a lot of the other teams we've had. To switch out members in a group does not change the perception of it. It just won't. And if you've been around this community as long as a lot of us in this VC have, you know that that's just not the case. Because everyone has a different perspective with the different sides of the community. And some are viewed favorably by some groups and some not well by others. It depends on the circles you're in. So to just blanket switch out a group because they exist in the current space of something not having worked, especially when you're asking that group to make all of the changes to fix what's currently happening, and then make the proposal to then remove those users and then bring in a new set is not a workflow that just has ever existed anywhere in history. Like, you can't expect people to make changes and then step down and then leave those changes after having done all the work for everyone else.
I feel like... Go ahead. You can go first.
I have a couple things I want to say quickly. I agree that type of workflow wouldn't work as well. The entirety goal of this is that you actually... firstly, before anything I say, actually, I wanted to say that switching out members, I think, is a temporary fix because a lot of the problems that we outlined together for the community are a lot more structural based and just pinpointing certain users. Of course, there's going to be bad eggs, but the majority of the problems are how processes currently flow and how transparency works, and that's not an individual person problem, which is why I agree that switching out people doesn't actually address the big issue at will. The most important thing with that also is that I would like to sorry, I forgot exactly what I was about to say, but actually, well, go. I actually just got lost in my own train of thought.
I mean, yeah, basically what I was going to say is that I do agree that, yeah, like, this workflow is non-existent and doesn't make much sense. But to be fair, the existence of this workflow was, like, the way you proposed it was not exactly the way we wanted to go about it. Like, first of all, we didn't even want, like, the current members to be reworking all of this. We actually wanted the current members to step out so new members could step in and rework it. So that was, like, not even the current, what was proposed in our end. Second, I do think that there are people in the tournament community, this is my own personal opinion, by the way, I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone, that should just not be there and are actually, like, actively determined, like, just not doing a great work at representing our tournament community. And a lot of it can come down to PR, you can say that. I don't think anyone in there is, like, effectively ill-intentioned. Like, I think it would be crazy if you actually, like, worked in a committee for 4 years just to hate people. Like, but I do think some people in there have problems and biases that go further beyond than the role that they should be having, to some degree. Again, this is a personal opinion. Just wanted to state that. And I think a lot of what we wanted to achieve with swapping out members was actually getting rid of those specific members that we believe were being problematic or just not doing all that much, for faces that the community can recognize and appreciate and respect more. Because even though it doesn't fix the overall issue, that's correct, it doesn't fix the structural issues that TCOM has. At the end of the day, it does increase, like, it just does. It does a blessing for PR. It might be like the world's greatest blessing for PR ever. Like, there are so many faces that you could throw in. I don't know if Acer is joining. It's already public, but I mean, that guy joined, didn't he? So there are stuff like this that, like, there are people out there that will just be a very pretty face for you to have in that could do a lot of work. Not just being a pretty face, obviously. These are people that I would believe are more than well capable of maintaining TCOM work. And we do understand one of the things that gets brought up the most, I think, for a lot of TCOM members is, guys, we have a life, we work jobs, like we all do, right? but there's always going to be someone a little bit more unemployed than you, more willing to take the work. Like, I really don't like this mentality of guys I'm busy at work. Like, if you think the workflow that you currently have is too much and you can't take it, I think you should step down and you should let someone else take that workflow. Because I've seen this, like, I don't want to call it an excuse because it's a real thing, right? I also have a job. I work 44 hours a week. Like, most people here get it. But if you feel like you have to be using this, like, reason every time just to bring up, like, I don't have time, then okay, leave. Like, someone else will take the spot where we can get new members that maybe have more free time or are able to take on this more. Because I feel like I've literally seen this reason being turned around by half the members, like, every single time that the issue gets brought up. So I would also like to make that clear.
Yeah, he pretty much just said the point I actually got stuck on earlier, which I really appreciate, in the fact that the workflow would be reversed, where after the previous members step down, you implement the new members, and then they implement the change because they have a fresh blank slate and they have a fresh perspective on things, which I completely agree with. And I also want to bring up the fact that although I completely respect that, yes, you are a representative of TC, and it is completely fair that you believe that nobody is acting in bad faith. From the general perspective of some specific members, there's a very large amount of distrust where I think people are unhappy of them representing the tournament community. That is one of the biggest problems with specific members that I outlined in my previous message. And although they may be acting in good faith or good decision making internally, from the outside view, almost nobody trusts them as a protected staff member to be proudly letting them represent our community.
May I interject and say just
Sure. Why not?
a quick note? I, as someone who has, I know Chillier as well, has been in the community for a while. I think it's pretty safe to say that tournament community has a very unique view on it from the whole community, in the sense that pretty much everything negative about it gets a spotlight shown on it. Like, for at least for like NAT and BN stuff, you do get relative news if you're in that sphere about good things that they're doing. And I'm not saying tournament community hasn't been doing great, good things. I do think there is a lot of kind of disconnect between the current tournament community staff and the current tournament, what's it called?
Player base?
I guess, yeah, the current tournament, just
Community?
like sphere. Yeah, I guess community. Mainly due to, obviously, a lot of the tournament community staff are older, more experienced and veteran tournament staff and hosts. But I feel like there is a clear disconnect that I do not see in other groups currently. And I feel like that is a big reason for change. And it's not, again, I think, I personally don't think the entire thing, I don't think every single person on tournament community should be completely dropped. But I do think restructuring, like, for the entire scene to be a bit healthier, I think it needs to be restructured.
Yeah, I mean, I think removing all, 10 people, 9 people, it's maybe a little too much, but
if it's clear that's not happening, by the way.
Yeah.
If I did not make that explicitly clear, that's not happening.
Oh, okay.
It's just
I'm sad.
Sorry. The concern is
I know you'd be sad about that, but it's
okay.
I had to make it clear that that's not happening. Yeah. Like, we live in the real world. Please.
It's okay. We have viewers.
The concern is that for TCOM, just like, actually, there's other people in OSU staff as well that I know have negative reputations. If they are cornerstones and they are unremovable, what does that speak for the rest of the community? That you can let people represent the community from the TCOM that have such a negative reputation and overall bad atmosphere around them for the general public.
Yeah, that covers most of our points for now. I mean, we have a lot of other things to say, but we'd like to hear if you have anything to say regarding
this is only pertaining to this discussion. Again, I really appreciate you asking for the VC. We also put in a request for a full town hall with a temporary list of people who I think are well trusted among the community. I want to make this clear that I think half of that list did not apply for TCOM. This is purely out of sole interest for helping the community and nothing else. But and I think the other half, I think maybe 2 people in that list, I believe Saiduzan and FC Easy said they both applied. I'm not sure if Megamic did, and I don't think, definitely me, Dada, and Rojo did not. So that is where the rest of our points will be held. And this is solely to answer your current questions. And thanks for everyone for being here, because I'm really glad to see, I mentioned this already, but the tournament community really feels like it's united. Okay.
Okay.
That was a crazy sound, but if you guys have any questions, have any thoughts, feel free to either message any of the TCOM staff, because I'm sure they're willing to also listen to it, or if you have any thoughts that you think would be relevant to me or Rojo, or any of the other names in that list, I think they would also be happy to hear you out.
Yeah, if you're looking for like full instant, like easy responses, please feel free to reach out to me or Ephemeral. Like that's really easy, simple, quick answer. Yeah. I'm just reading through the chat messages to see what we've got. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Other groups have been restructured over a long period of time. I think the NAT actually was probably a bad example to use earlier because they're not doing too hot. But
yeah, I mean,
we know.
Specifically,
they just lost their
now.
positions. But
we know.
They just. I know Dada's been really not happy about it.
Dada has been busting a year with that one.
Yeah, I mean, like,
listen,
to be honest,
stuck in like 2023. So
I actually don't know if this is true. I've heard. This is just from what I've heard, but the tournament scene is a lot less toxic compared to the mapping scene, where I've heard some ridiculous concepts and rumors being spread. Yeah, I've heard like it's way less civilized over there. So I'm not sure exactly how it's working over, like with the BN system and the NATs. Just another little tournament sphere. So
yeah, and, Stan, to your point about being made to fix issues of badging being super slow and inconsistent. So okay. I did not help create Tournament Committee. I want to make that known. So I don't actually know why Tournament Committee was created in the first place. It was like a very small subset of people that originally like created the group, and I don't know if it was made to fix it being that specifically, but badging was done pretty arbitrarily before Tournament Committee. I mean, you sent in an email, it was not really reviewed, it was given a screening, and then when you submitted the end of the tournament, you got a badge no matter what. That was effectively what happened. Nobody looked at anything, there was no review, there was no like special considerations for it. It was very basic. It was like a quick and easy workflow because people just ended up getting badges for things. But the community was also a lot smaller then, and it was a lot less fleshed out. And like many other things with groups that it, came about to resolve an issue of a process that did not have any formal systems in place, nominations, things of the like, it grows and changes over time. And those changes and that growth over time do not necessarily mean that you have to abandon the processes or the people that got you to that point. And effectively what I'm going by in this is there are members of all internal teams that have existed through thick and thin and through restructures and reformatting and rule changes and everything else this game has had to offer. And the tournament committee being the newest of those, especially because tournaments realistically were a pretty small subset of the game for a very long time, and as it grows bigger, it changes. You change the way that the team is structured in that the members of the team no longer become the face of it, right? When you think of the GMT, or the NAT, or even World Cups, which is a pretty big staff team at this point, you don't necessarily think of the names of the individual members as the faces of those efforts. You think of the group itself. Like, when you think of World Cups, you think of the staff. You think of GMT, you think of the GMT as a collective entity, right? And I think the root of the issue of tournament committee, especially in moving forward, is not that we need to remove members who have been doing good faith work and who have put in all this time and effort to get things to where they are today. It's that we need to put Tournament Committee in a position where it no longer is viewed by its individual components rather than the summation of the collective efforts that the group takes. And that's the way moving forward that you start to make it a more cohesive group, and decisions start to become more broad and unanimous and reflective of what the community wants. And through that, and a way to do that is where that transparency comes in. The processes that we use, the guides that are being produced, the outreach to different parts of the community by making the group slightly larger. And that's where it starts to come together a little bit more without having to abandon and start from scratch, which effectively is, and it's ironic that I use that word, it's the least effective solution. It's really not going to get you anywhere. You're basically bringing it back to the Stone Age without that, instead of just moving forward and making the changes. Nothing is ever so lost that it needs a clean slate wipe to start from scratch. That is, as somebody who manages projects for a living, that's just, it's never happened. But that's the way I see this. Like, you need to see it as, we need to push it as more of a collective rather than there's this member I don't like and there's this member that makes bad decisions or gives bad PR in that. And those are where the processes need to be changed, where the group is now viewed as the group and not, okay, who's in this? Who could potentially be making the bad decision? Because I think the tournament community is very guilty of that a lot of the time. We tend to pick and choose the names that we either like or don't like arbitrarily in some cases. Like, I've seen people just not like people that they've never worked with before, which seems silly sometimes, but that's kind of just the way this community has gone up until now, and it's not fair to take things that way, and I wish that we would move away from doing stuff like that. But that's the way that I view this.
Okay. Let me go ahead here and speak first. I think, first of all, this is the nature of competitive environments. I would like to say that this is what makes TCOM different than the GMT or any other structures that we might have in this game. This is a competitive environment that people actively participate in. Therefore, I would assume things will get more heated than other places, just by the nature of it being a competitive environment. And that's why we tend to pick and choose names, and that's why some people hate each other without even knowing each other. That is just like, it is a byproduct of a competitive environment that you really cannot control that much. Second, I'm not really opposed to the idea of TCOM becoming something, I guess, big enough to the point in which people will recognize it as an organization rather than member by member name, right? However, I do still think that it's gotten too bad. At this point, there are names that I think will not be forgotten even if you were to add 20 members tomorrow. And people will be rioting for them to go until, I don't know, man, like, until they go. Like, I actually wholeheartly believe this. Sometimes they mellow out, but if you've been around community servers, especially private ones, you will see these names be brought up to light every other weekend, nonstop. Like, it is actually like, this is not like a change that people will probably go through. And I understand that some of it can be unfounded, of course. Like, not everything, there's probably not like the objective truth ever, but
I think
it is just a thing. At some point, let me just finish it real quick and then I'll give you. Mm-hmm. But at some point, people will definitely just like, they're just not happy. And it all comes down to what I think it's just like this individual names have done harm that is like tangible. There is like, I agree that picking and choosing names doesn't really do that much, but there is tangible damage attached to these names. That is what I'm trying to, like, it's not that TCOM screwed up, let's blame it on Chili Repair. No, it's like it's like Chip screwed up, let's blame it on Chip. It's more like people acting on an entity, and more like, this specific individual has been brought to light to have screwed up individually. So we want to hold this individual accountable for this individual mistake that he did make within an organization, but it was still an individual decision. And even if we were to group right now TCOM as just TCOM and we forget about every names,
yeah, can we start naming people, by the way? Like, I don't love, I mean,
like, we could, but like, I thought the entirety of not naming people was to protect their privacy. I think that's
the privacy is, it's different when it's coming from making direct points about issues within the committee that are directly attributed to individual users, because we're not fixating on it.
Before we can target people, I guess, because we really don't want to do that. Let me be honest. We are more than happy to handle this privately in a private space. Also, we need a little bit of time to gather everything to make an actual correct report and do things the way they're supposed to be done.
I don't think handling it in a private space is necessarily the way to go, because if the transgressions of these members that you are mentioning have been so great and so large that they adversely affect the viewpoint of the team, that should be public knowledge, right? If this view is widely held by the entire community, this needs to be made known, or rather, it should be blatantly obvious. So not naming them makes it sound like it's not quite as obvious, and it's some subset of users that has this ideal, and then it's not really the collective thinking. So okay. I think naming it makes more sense.
I agree to an extent, man. People don't like T1G. I don't think anybody likes T1G. I'm just gonna say it. I think people can come into the chat right now. They're in the voice chat. They're gonna say +1 or plus. People don't like T1G. The way he speaks to people, the way he has treated tournament staff, the way he has talked to some of our very recognizable community members, the way he has been involved in so many different dramas, people do not like T1G. I think he's mellowed out in recent years. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of this very bad stuff that I've seen personally is kind of 2022. I think 2021, but in general, there is he might be the rank 1 people. He is the man that people want to get out. He might be the one person that if you could remove one member from TCOM, it's gotta be T1G. If anyone were to choose, you give people a wheel, pick one person to kick out of TCOM. I think 90% votes are gonna go to T1G.
I would like to step in, and I would like to respond to what Ephemeral and Belladonna have said, in that the problem, yes, of putting people on the spot is that we were still going to collect evidence on T1G. Nobody has made a document on him because a lot of this stuff is kind of scattered around, and he didn't really hold that much of it's been a lot of things built up, but we are fully okay with just grabbing evidence and giving us probably 1 day or 2 to collect everything in the document if people need to see. I'm very confident in this statement specifically because anybody in the tournament scene that has been active in the last maybe 7 years can acknowledge that there has been at least a great amount of toxicity within his decision making and his choice and his appearance. Both Shadoos and Chilia have had documents made on them before, and I've already mentioned this. Chilia did apologize, which is great.
I had a full document made on me?
Or maybe not a document, but...
I thought I was just included in...
Oh, you got built up, yeah. I mean, Shadoos definitely got a full document multiple times.
Shadoos got basically, exposed multiple times, yes. And even though we knew this was handled internally, as far as it goes for the actual community knowledge, he kind of just stayed there, and, nothing ever happened.
I've heard he's improved, but, yeah.
Might I add, just interject really quick?
Mm-hmm.
On the topic of T1G, just to add to this, obviously this will likely be included. Out of all the members in TCOM, I feel like he, generally when you're I guess a support group or a group that manages something, as in tournaments, I feel like there's a certain level of, how do I put this? I don't want to say maturity. I don't think that's the right word, but public, out-facing how you talk and how you talk to people, there's a certain limit. There's a certain floor you should reach, and I really do not feel like T1G reaches that. And that is not a disrespect to his character, because I've talking to T1G in private. I do like talking to T1G. However, his public, how he presents as a staff member, if in the TCOM, it doesn't represent a certain level of, I guess, professionality.
Yeah. I would also quickly like to point out what Stan was saying. I agree where Framework is coming, but specifically for TCOM, since this group was genuinely born from a time of tournaments where the staff groups were pretty thin and tournaments were not that popular, there was one group of staff members that became friends, and they were all dominant during that period. This being Yaze, T1G, I believe Dio as well. Azer was originally part of this as well. There's some other people on the list, but this was, I think Noah was also there. But I can understand why people would see it as I don't want to use the word circle jerk, but like highly levels of nepotism, because it was from that era where tournaments were much tournament staff groups were much smaller and much more concise compared to what they are now, due to just the amount of sheer tournaments being developed and the sheer amount of talent that has been brought upon us. But yeah, I don't really want to harbor too much on the T1G point, because as I already said previously, without a document, any hard evidence yet, we can only just say what has happened and just mention how he's had extreme high cases of toxicity and disrespect towards the general tournament community, where it's a lot of people just don't want to see him as the face of a tournament community spot. And the same used to go for Shadooz until he supposedly changed his ways. Again, I still think a public document is absolutely necessary from Shadooz, even though I actually work on a lot of projects of him. I think it's very important that he can finally come clean. And I also appreciate Chiliapair for making the document on himself, since I really feel like that was needed at that time, because there was a lot of tournament controversy and he pretty much addressed all of them. There are a couple of things I've heard specifically about Chiliapair recently, including Hard Rock Showdown, but
that was part of that document.
Okay, as long as you addressed it, that's pretty good, because that one
was the whole thing with me and Amamiya having a disagreement about the reschedule. Yeah, that was definitely in there.
I see.
I mean, one thing I want to say is that something Belladonna mentioned right here is that there should be a certain level of skill, like just professionalism floor to be had when you are part of a committee, right? And I think it's okay to not always meet it. Like, people will have bad days. Like we've seen you, Chiliapair, like make some statements that you backed out at like 2 hours after, because like you realized, right, I got into the heat of the moment, I said something I shouldn't have. The problem we mostly have with T1G is that we've never seen that behavior ever happen. Like, people, you are aware, Chilier, that people had this issue with you at some point, and you've made a ton of work to make that change, and you've changed. Like, you're actually you're able to apologize, which is crazy. A lot of people wouldn't believe this back in the day, and that's just not a behavior that's like being seen from T1G, and that's also one of the points I'd like to make about this case. But going back to what Chip said, the problem with just bringing up names randomly is that we would like to bring up names in a more professional manner and just have the evidence in hand immediately, because it's just better for everyone. And just like kind of saying it doesn't really go anywhere. But the thing that I'm trying to say is that if you can ask tournament players in general, these random tournament players that are dedicated in the community, that have been around for a while, and they will talk negatively about T1G, I think that on its own already says a lot. Like, that's already on its own saying so much about the topic.
Yeah. I'd like to follow up with this T1G investigation as well. I'll be contacting multiple members of Corsace, because he had a credible role there, for better or for worse, and a lot of people were directly impacted. And I think that if you choose to ask anybody directly, I would highly recommend talking to somebody part of that organization.
We do not mention Corsace.
I don't want to get into Corsace.
We do not mention Corsace. We do not mention Corsace.
I left that tournament for a reason. It wasn't the same tournament it was when I started it.
There is also,
it made me very sad. It made me very sad.
It made a lot of people very sad.
It made a lot of people.
Made players sad, made staff sad, made head staff sad, made the owner sad, made the guy who made Corsace sad. Like, that's all you need to know. But yes, that was a complete different debacle, and we will gladly collect evidence. I've already messaged a couple people who I know were directly impacted on T1G's behalf to provide any logs, and then we will have a private doc. I mean, we can make it public if you guys really want, but I think that sending it privately first is probably a good idea, and then afterwards we can publicize it if need be. Again, like, I think public documents are just done. Like, although they do get the job done, a lot of it is just like embarrassing the person, and I don't really care personally on making somebody feel bad publicly and embarrass them. The more important thing is that people change. And just like how Chili, it was very honorable of you to make that document. As you said, you didn't even have a document on you. You just made it after like a document mentioned you. It's very honorable to see that you were able to improve. And yeah, as you said, since Hard Rock Showdown was included, I don't think I've heard anything ever since that issue, which is very honest. But I would like to see the same be said for both Shadows and definitely T1G. And then we'll see.
You can keep going. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I think this point has been rested fairly enough. I mean, like, again, we don't really want to talk too much about individual members. On the same topic, though, I don't want to gloss over too many things because a lot of topics are really important for everyone to hear. And this impromptu meeting where it's just us talking to you isn't going to be the defining moment. I hope that we can talk to other members of TCOM as well because you're just one person. And I think that it's very respectful of you to take your time to come out this way. And for everyone here, thank you again. But there's a lot more that needs to be said as well. And a little bit more preparation, I think, for us that if we have any direct points, we can properly contribute. But if you have any other questions right now, feel free. We can definitely respond.
Plenty of time here. Yeah, I think the one thing I will say, and again, in the interest of transparency and the whole push behind this being open communication and everything else, this town hall, public forum meeting, whatever, with the tournament community, I want this to be open to everyone. I don't think, and you've said it yourselves, I don't think it's fair that a single subset of people will not have access to this information and it's not distributed properly otherwise, and I don't want to leave it up to chance that the members of this meeting are the only ones that are able to relay this information to everyone else. So if we are going to have a meeting, I do want it to be in the community forum form that I proposed at our last quarterly meeting, which is having an open time where and we can set the agenda ahead of time. We can say, here's the topic of this meeting. Moving forward, the tournament committee, the community, expectations, transparency, new members, that whole sort of thing. It can be a whole topic, but I very much would like it to be open to absolutely anyone, because I think there is a lot of outside perspective here that we're not getting in the space of having 6 users plus the tournament committee there. Like, yes, I get that there is some reach there with having larger faces, but it's also very compartmentalized. Like, the list of users you have listed, 75% of this is the World Cup pooling team, which is very compartmentalized. And, like, I can see that right off the bat as a host. So, I definitely think your concerns are very clearly not unfounded, and as I posted earlier with the screenshots of our last quarterly meeting, a lot of the concerns about processes and moving things forward are not, the team is not oblivious to what's going on, which is why I say, you can't assume the bad faith aspect of things here. But again, if there is legitimate concerns about how members carry themselves, and, while I do believe that even members of the community should be held to a higher standard. Being on an internal team obviously does come with that extra level of responsibility. And Shiv, you've been there. We had our post OWC wrap up meeting, and I opened the entire meeting with how people carry themselves on social media as like a generic point.
I remember this completely.
Yeah, exactly, and it's something that we try to be very careful with, especially with the internal teams, and that's for everyone here who isn't part of an official project. That's something that we're very adamant about. You represent the game to not only our community but our outside viewers, our featured artist pool, our potential featured artist pool. Any of the options that OSU has available to it comes about based on how these internal teams. So and again, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to defend anyone, and I'm also not going to argue against anyone, because it's just not the place to do it here. So the concerns have been brought up and the names have been mentioned, and that's fine. And I think that's what we were looking for, was the transparency of a document has been posted, there are concerns, and, broad points have been mentioned about certain members, and I think being transparent about who those people are that's our step one, right? Now we can start to dig into it more, not only from your end in presenting things to us, but we can also take a look back and see, do we notice a pattern here? Do we come to the same conclusion? Because inevitably this does come from both sides, and the community perspective is one aspect of this very multifaceted thing that we call official contribution. So again, it's good that voices are being heard. We made a lot of rapid fire changes tonight that were made by, I will admit, a smaller subset of the team, but whoever was around to make the decisions. But a lot of this has been in the work for a very long time, and to be honest, Dan, again, I put the screenshots in earlier of the Q4 meeting. This isn't really something that we were waiting for this to happen for. It's just a matter of getting deliberation in and then having a decision and then writing it up does end up taking a long time, because inherently everything we do is official. In a posted capacity, everything we post is official, which means that we have to be very concise with how we word things and very matter of fact and very open. So I think Ephemeral has summarized well what the two main concerns are on the starting end here. And I think going forward, we've already started to make changes with processes and making things more open. And, I'll kind of go over it because it's something that, Peppy mentioned earlier today, and I think I resonate well with in terms of what I think envision and what a lot of our members envision for the future of this scene is that the entire purpose of this process is a partnership. This cannot ever be the tournament committee constantly fighting back and the community constantly fighting back, because this, we have such a broad community and such a diverse pool of opinions that we're never going to agree entirely on everything. But we have to make sure that we are making sure that quality is being hit while, awarding and providing as much enjoyment as possible. Which is why the changes today were made as a start, because inevitably most of these issues are coming out because of decisions to unbadge certain tournaments or not give out certain badges or otherwise. When in reality, it is going forward now, how do we take every possible avenue to assume good faith from these users? And, that's... Stage can probably attest to this. I think I type it in the tournament committee channel once a week. Always assume a good faith standpoint unless, evidence proves otherwise. That's in voting, that's in reviews, that's in everything else. We always need to assume that we are missing context or we are not seeing a perspective that does exist somewhere else, which is why we implemented the appeal period for tournament bans, because there's always something else that's not brought to us. And it's why we've brought it to badge denials, because as has been proven, there is always something else under consideration or something that ends up, going overlooked, even if it was there and it doesn't get seen. And, for the most part, we approve most tournaments. I don't know if the numbers are specifically posted on the public community tournament status tracker. But since the creation of a formal tournament committee tracker, which is something I think I implemented however many years ago now, a year or two ago now, we have approved 389 total tournaments. 25 have been denied in that time. So of that and that puts into perspective how many requests we get to be honest. So of those lists, 25 in total have been denied. So our step moving forward is now, okay, do we take a look back? Do we see those 25 tournaments that were denied support since the conception of this tracker, which started back in the start of 2023, so 2 years ago as of a month and a half from now? How do we get that number down from 25? Can we get it down to 20 within 6 months? In or from in the next 2 years, can we keep that number from going up to 50 and instead go down to maybe that number goes up to 30. Maybe we only deny 5. But that's what we're looking for out now is, do we set these requirements? It's why we've talked about the check marks. It's why we've talked about all of these processes and changing and why we do it. And I'm going to give early into how I'm envisioning this system moving forward is a system of, let's say we pick out, and I want to know people's thoughts on this, by the way, because this is something I've legitimately proposed a couple of times, is we have 20 checkboxes that you can feasibly mark as a tournament. Realistically, there's either more or less than this, but we come up with 20 different data points of things that tournaments have done in the past who have received badges successfully. This can be things from pooling to sizes to fun gimmicks to streams to designs, anything else. It can be literally anything under the sun for a good tournament. And if you check off, let's say, and this will apply for all badges, including tri badges. And in order to receive tri badge support, let's say, you need to check off 15 to 17 or more of these checkboxes. Let's say you need to be, upper echelon, obviously, of tournaments. You need to basically do everything as awesome as possible. But to receive a badge, you can check, 10 of these checkboxes out of the 20, or something like that. And then, if you're less than that, it starts to become iffy. And if you're more than that, you're above the average. And effectively what we do is we assort these items and checkboxes into categories of hard stop errors and warning points. And yes, I agree, Citus. I think this should be community decided upon because it's literally impossible for us to come up with 20 different data points on our own. So that would absolutely be a discussion that would take place in this server. Similar to the seeding discussion we had when we made a thread for that. And effectively, we would have these warning items and hard stop items. And you would check off a certain number of these, and it can be any random assortment. But then, you can't have more than 4 hard stop errors in your tournament, or you can't have more than 10 warning items, whatever, some number that we would come up with. And then moving forward, we use the system where we now provide extended leniency on all of these points. And the only points that could ever get your tournament to be denied a badge is if for some reason you checked off multiple of the points that the community has determined to be fatal flaws. If you've checked off 3 checkboxes of this list of items and the community has determined that these are fatal flaw items, you can't receive your badge in that case. But if you only make 1 of those, then we assume it's a once-off mistake, and we don't want to punish for that, because administrative errors happen, and clerical things go sideways, and people make mistakes with numbers and formulas and scheduling and all that sort of thing. It happens. And
I think this is a good proposal, but it would be better to bring it up in writing where it can be discussed in a more,
This is not meant to be discussion about it. This is
everybody was talking about it, which is
the theory behind a points-related system rather than...
Let it talk.
Yeah.
That. And I agree. There is probably ways to game systems, but Ben, I also think there's a way to game every system, too. For those of you here who have been staffing for a very long time, are aware of the Tiger Eyes method for badging a tournament. And a lot of everyone who anyone who just made a comment knows what I'm talking about. When you had to have hosted a tournament before, and if you hadn't hosted a tournament before, in order to badge your tournament, you needed to have somebody on your admin team or as a co-host
method
who had done it before. So you would pull someone like Tiger Eyes or Moss or NKJ like that on your tournament staff to host with you in order to badge your tournament. And people gamed the system with it, and that's not how it was meant to be seen. So, again, we have to assume the community will take everything we do in stride and that the community wants the best for itself. So to implement a system like this is simply to provide extended leniency where there is still process for us to check tournaments and to be able to validate quality, especially for things like tri badges that we want to really recognize the best of the best, is it covers both bounds. It covers the highs and the lows. But the system needs to be fleshed out, and it needs to be reviewed. So, you know, and it's a lot of conversation that happened today. We don't want to dock tournaments for making one mistake. We just don't. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes denying a badge. It really sucks. It does. Because inevitably, sometimes it's a mistake that's out of their hands. Sometimes it was in their hands, and it still doesn't feel good because inevitably it affects the players. And a simple staff mistake should really not screw the players over. And I think of this more strongly because I'm a player myself. But I think that's my long-winded explanation of trying to explain the system that I've come up with. Or maybe it's short for me. But
I mean, I think it's very... Actually, Stage, you wanted to talk. I saw you unmute, man.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, one comment I wanted to make is like, on just like the topic of unbadging. So like we recently had I think 2 tournaments come in that just like barely were past this like 2-month cutoff window. And you know, there was also past precedent for denying a badge just solely on the fact that it was submitted like late. And so like I was actually assigned to this like one of these tournaments, and I was just like, okay, well, you know, it doesn't really make a difference to me that it's submitted 18 days late. Like, I'm still just reviewing it the same way I would have if it was submitted on time. Like, it's literally no more inconvenient for me. And so I was just like, okay, well, I think we should hold a vote on this. And it was like a landslide in favor of denying the badge. And then all this stuff happened, and we're just like, okay, like, I think we just need to like reflect, and there's probably more rules like this. Maybe we can talk about that later. But there's like some rules on the wiki that are just like objectively bad. Like denying a badge just because it was submitted a little late. Like, yeah, I just think there's more rules on the wiki that we should look into, just to avoid like shifting from denying badge because we're strict rule followers to like critically thinking about the rules that we have, fixing the rules that suck, and like reviewing tournaments through a lens of how can we badge this tournament rather than how can we unbadge the tournament.
Yeah. Okay. I actually wanted to move to that point. I think you ended that perfectly with what I wanted to follow up with. It does feel like that. Like a lot of the decisions that were made that people are very unhappy or were historically very unhappy with looks like, from a community perspective, from a player perspective, from a participant, like member of the community perspective, it really looks like they were just trying to unbatch the tournament rather than try to batch it. Like it looks like it was like a versus. It looks like it was a this is you versus me kind of deal, and not like this tournament made a mistake and we have to unfortunately punish it or something. Like it actually felt like this is like this evil guy, and this evil guy really wants to take my tournament down. And we cannot do anything. We just have to accept it. It really felt like that for quite literally the longest time. In many cases that we've documented in the past. I'm glad that it looks like from what Stage and you, Chiller, are saying, the internal vision is not to do that, and you from the lens of a player, obviously you want to. I'm talking about Chiller here, right? That since he does play Osu, from the lens of a player, he does want to just be able to batch more tournaments, not batch less. I do agree the checkbox idea is pretty good, especially if it's done correctly. I think it's way better than the current system that we have. I'm pretty sure most people would agree. I wanted to bring up one kind of related point, but not exactly to this discussion. It's more of a TCOM thing. Chiller, do you think TCOM members from other game modes should have a vote on other game modes? Like, do you think a Catch the Beat, a Taiko, a Mania representative should ever speak up on a standard matter? Like something like the gamer situation in LWC?
I think it's slightly more complicated than that, and I don't want to say that as a blanket term. What I mean by that is everyone in the tournament committee, regardless of the game mode they're meant to represent, is an experienced host in their game mode. Like, I'll pull like Albion as an example because I was talking to him earlier. Most people know him as a World Cup referee. what people don't realize is he hosts one of the largest tri-badged Mania tournaments in the game, soft. And I think that to have a member in the tournament committee like that is from a different game mode, but it's still the same game, I think their opinions on reviewing tournaments as a host and as a staff member principally will be relatively the same. Now, if it comes down to it, and there's a game mode specific question that needs to be answered, we very much leave that to the people who are meant to be in tournament committee for those game modes. But that's very rare. Most of the time, tournament knowledge and hosting knowledge is very much shared across the game modes. And, you know, as a host of the World Cups, I have the unique ability to see how all of the different modes view tournaments across the year. And it's interesting because it's all the same and all the communities act the same. The way that they push for their teams and they give map pool feedback and they type in the chat and they do their reschedules and everything. It's all like, it's the same thing, and it really brings the game back together. So I don't think it's as disconnected as members needing to give opinions on one area or another. I think that there's shared knowledge there because we're all dealing with the same things. Everyone follows the same set of rules. Everyone uses the same tools, really, too. The only edge that Osu Catch has on the standard community is they have Wybin that we totally need. But other than that...
Alright, so yeah.
That's what I see it as.
I understand. I don't really entirely disagree on that. I think I just wanted to make it clear, if a context-dependent situation comes up that requires a context-dependent community member, I just wanted to know if, like, they were able to, like, not even if, like, how it works internally, rather just what you thought of the situation. Because I do think, like, it's not even like you can bring up the standard argument anytime, but like maybe something incredibly specific Taiko related happens and you are not able to give any input. I just wanted to know, like, what do you think about situations like that? Because it was something that we did bring up, like me and Chip, and we were like, it's a little, even though I do agree that hosting experience and tournament experience, in fact, does translate between game modes, because it's always going to be the same. Everyone got map pool feedback, everyone got rescheduled. Like, it is kind of like the same ecosystem in that regard. Knowing people and knowing situations and knowing even subgroups of people is actually really important for making specific decisions. And sometimes having a view that does not take into account those things can, like, skew a decision so much that I actually think, like, it would be harmful. So you wanted to know, like, in the case that those specific situations do happen, it is handled, or you would think, sorry, I don't want to assume anything internally, that it should be handled that way. It's all I'm getting at. Go ahead.
I don't know if someone else wanted to say something before.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to chime in and say, like, on the topic of, like, something very rule set specific happens, like, or game mode specific happens, I can't really think, like, outside of maybe people dynamics what that would look like. Like, when it comes to, like, competitive integrity and, like, pretty much all the core basic, like, tournament stuff, it's pretty, like, mode agnostic, if you will. But when it comes, like, I think a good kind of parallel, or maybe like I can kind of draw what you're saying, like, we all kind of have different areas of expertise, and, like, you know, like, for example, I'm more familiar with 5-digit than, like, Chillier is. So when someone says, like, you know, if someone is like, hey, who is this, like, random 5-digit guy, I might actually, like, know them and be like, oh yeah, like, they're consistently, like, a bad apple and we should maybe, like, put an eye out on them. So, like, usually in those cases where, like, no one really knows what's going on, but maybe one or two people do, we usually just kind of, like, obviously, like, not blindly trust them, but we'll kind of, like, listen to their judgment a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I will continue this discussion really quick. So I actually messaged some other game mode relevant people, specifically if you guys are familiar with Mint, who's really has a heavy lead in a lot of map pooling for Mania. And,
Mint is our main map pooler for 4K, by the way.
Yeah, and they mentioned the fact that I think they also think that it's really important that this is actually less of a standard issue because of how dominant TCOM is. But just like how you said, it's really important. You have different levels of expertise. Like Tycho and CTB probably have only one representative each, and I'm not sure how many issues really arise in those areas if one person is enough to suffice, or enough to be trusted to have the most, I guess, like, proper judgment on the situation. That was why one of the things we discussed a lot was having game mode specific TCOM, and that each one would be directly tailored. I know this goes against what Ephemeral said about kind of tying the game together by the game modes, but I don't exactly know how much of a priority that is for people to have a TCOM that covers all four, when instead you can just have 4 different TCOMs that all target their own game mode individual specifics. So you can cover so many more different focal points. Like you said, about expertise, when you have 4 developed groups for 4 different game modes, you'll have all the expertise you ever need. But right now you only have one for some game modes specifically, right?
I'll just add to the context. I think there's only a catch representative member in TCOM right now. That is Snow Leopard. And there's no other game mode representative. ADM.
That's something we're
think,
covering.
I do think that Peppy. Sorry.
I think there was like Hy-Vee, Juan, and maybe other people who covered the Tycho Mania, but they're not anymore.
In terms of like other game modes, yes, I think that there are certainly modes where we need more coverage. Most recently, we've had a lot of Mania people either just retire or, where we already had like less in that area, which is not very good because Mania is probably our largest mode for tournaments hosted outside of Standard, which is why in the new app cycle we were looking for specific counts of like higher numbers in other game modes. And we do have, again, people from each community specifically trying to review those members that are coming in to make sure that we have good perspectives for each of them. Now, and Nelly, to your point, for stuff like Catch, yes, we have a little bit less oversight, unfortunately, right now than we would want to, which is something we want to alleviate. Because for Catch right now, effectively, it's Snow Leopard and then, like, kind of me. And then for Catch, that's kind of the extent of where we're getting people who actually know the game mode. And I think that Catch is bigger than that in terms of getting other users in for the group. I definitely think we have one more. I personally literally got assigned a Catch tournament yesterday, so there's enough that are coming in right now that need to be reviewed, and I don't have the list of applicants in front of me. I can filter it down actually and tell you how many applicants we got for the Catch pool. It was 6. But
Nice.
Yeah, so we got 6 people dropped in for Catch, 6 for Tycho, and 6 for Mania. That's actually hilarious, by the way.
That is very funny.
Wow.
I did not realize that. Yeah,
And 1,000 for Standard.
Standard
1,000 applicants?
No,
It's not
I'm
1,000.
kidding, bro.
I'm gonna guess
People love
50.
tournaments.
It's gotta be around 50. It's gotta be around
Yeah, it's 33. It's 33.
Okay.
50. Okay.
That's after checks and everything.
I see.
Okay.
I just want to. This is a very easy point to just come across because I saw Mint just mention that having 2 representatives for each game would already be a great direction. The same thing actually goes for languages. I wonder if you guys had any idea of incorporating like a Chinese TCOM member or a Russian, because I know these are 2 of the most language.
I am actively looking for that.
I was about to say that is really important.
I made it so clear, and Stage has also been with me on this. We need it so badly. Like, for so long, it has been going to GMT and asking the language-specific GMT, can you translate this for us?
That is fantastic to hear. Then.
Which
that is crazy.
Like,
that is crazy.
we've had actual like users who know the language translating. We're not just like DeepL translating these, but yeah, it slows the workflows. So I mean, I'm personally staring at 2 names that I want based on other languages, but that's besides the point. We're also looking for like, and again, more player perspectives too. We've kind of rushed through the point that like over the years, the tournament committee has become less and less player oriented over time because those who were players in the tournament committee either like stepped down or stopped, retired and played, which has effectively left it as like me. And I think we need more players, especially for standard. I don't know if we necessarily need players for other modes that are a little bit smaller, where the player and staff perspective and that line actually tends to blur a little bit more in other game modes. A lot of the really good players tend to staff, and a lot of the good staff tend to be good players too. That's at least something that I notice in a lot of modes where the line blurs more. But in standard, like there is more of that dichotomy. Like you have a far smaller subset of people who can play and staff at a high level than you do otherwise. And I think, especially when it comes to like open rank, which is a big part of it, like the subset of people who are viewing that scene and staffing is very different because the high players don't always staff outside of play testing. And then the lower ranked players tend to do more, but then they don't have view over high level pooling. And you get this whole weird mishmash of people not being able to see. Which is why we specifically put out the call for players on the latest formal application cycle, is what I'm going to refer to it as. Because, quite frankly, we need more people with that view. Like, there cannot be one of us that is giving perspectives on open rank tournaments from a player perspective.
Sure. No,
it just doesn't work.
Sure. I'm pretty sure of the 33 people that applied, I would assume like at least 5 are probably qualified for open rank tournament like insights. I do agree that basically when it comes down to open rank tournaments, like we just have you and nobody else to really give like insight on like what an open rank tournament usually goes like and how it plays like, and map pool quality and stuff like that. I do also think that something that we brought up just before starting this actually was the fact about it was a map pooling topic, one we people like me and Chiv love to just talk about for hours. Is that we do have this kind of issue. This gray zone when it comes to map pooling and having people judge map pools when 1, they can be incredibly subjective, and 2, some of these people don't map pool, and we feel like it's kind of unfair to have these people judge and take decisions, especially ones that could unbash a tournament based off of a map pool without it going through a review that actually has like focal points that need to be like, I don't know, standardized, for example. Because we think it's just like not necessarily done in bad faith. It just comes off across as like something very primitive. It's just like, let's just unbash this tournament because they use this map and it's not very playable or something. Especially this is coming from me, which I like to really pull really stupid, crazy stuff. Because there's an audience for it. That is also something else that I want to bring up. There is almost always, I think, I'd say, an audience for something. And me and Chiv are kind of worried that we saw this, like, we can bring this tournament name a million times. AGDT2, like, we saw this happen. Everyone saw this happen. We're worried that this could happen in the future again. And like the player base view of AGDT2 is it should have not been unbatched. And that like those are the players that are playing the tournament and they're playing the maps and they're playing other tournaments and playing other pools, telling you it should have not been unbatched. And
yeah,
it was, at the end of the day, it was a decision that was made by a group of teams that I don't even think could play that map pool, with all due respect. So like, yeah, it's a very complicated topic that I wanted to bring up here, especially us, since we do have the, I guess, quote unquote, official map pooling OSU standard server.
I would also like to mention quickly, following up on the map pooling point specifically, I mentioned this, how Trilia, I think you and Dio on the team are the only two people that are actually capable of reviewing map poolers. I really don't want to be super raw on this, but I would not trust the majority of the rest of TCOM to actually have an understanding of the logic behind certain pools. I think if they saw AJDT2 and be like, they looked at the map and it's like, oh, there's a hits on this, so it's definitely not pullable. They need to be banned. Or like, not the TCOP members, but the people who pulled it need to be banned theoretically. But well, not literally, but you see what I mean.
As a participant of United States Cup and player of Dada pools, I get it.
Oh, USC.
Exactly. So like,
I get it.
You
USC
have
is
a
my
very-
favorite tournament
yeah,
every year.
it's
Literally every year.
if somebody goes into USC and sees, wait, this guy pulled stream practice and he's never played one, but he's like, this is such a low quality map. This tournament should be unbadged. When Dada is, I don't want to glaze him, but he's been one of the most pivotal map poolers ever, like literally ever.
Glaze.
Nah, Glaze
It's-
Dada, that's fine.
Really important that map poolers are reviewed and judged with people that have experience, like you and Shalia, like you and Dio, but with more. And I think that there are a lot of options, a lot of opportunities. I hope to see if the team gets more map poolers. That's one step in the right direction. But this should definitely be something that maybe is outsourced to people who are more experienced as well, so that the team can focus on matters that they have actual experience in. That's not something as trivial as map pooling, where people devote literally thousands of hours to learning this gimmick.
Do we want to? I'll defer to you, but do we want to talk about like that vote in that process for AGDT?
I'm going to be honest, if you're prepared to talk about it, I'm totally down for that. I don't know if my brain goes back that far. Because
I'm comfortable just sharing my experience. It is also 3:20 a.m., so bear with me. But
Go ahead.
Yeah.
let's see. So, I mean, I looked at the vote earlier today, and it was, I think, a 9-1 vote on unbadging that tournament. There were two options that like were kind of like unbadged for this reason or unbadged for this reason. The vote that like won, that had 6 votes, I think, so 6-4. It was like unbadge. Let's see, trying to remember. Yeah, it was like map pools by themselves cannot unbadge a tournament, but we are unbadging AGDT2 due to the map pool causing a like invalid competitive environment. So like I understand that map pools are like completely subjective, and that isn't like the reason why AGDT was unbadged. It was the like majority opinion that some maps in the pools kind of cause like an RNG environment. And I remember we were kind of deliberating this, and there was a lot of frustration from some players about like how like at least one specific map that comes to mind. It was like this 11-star map. It was like a Sonic map, I think. I can't remember the name.
Oh no!
You know,
no.
it was
was
like
it
11
Live and
stars.
Learn?
Oh,
Live and learn.
That's a legendary.
And
It's the
so
second use of
we-
Sonic map I knew.
Yeah. I saw the VOD, and it just looked like, I mean, obviously Maxi is like the GOAT, so he was able to like hit some of it somehow. But like I think the majority of us thought that went beyond the scope of gimmick into just plain not competitive. Like it was kind of just RNG who won, unless you're Maxi.
Can I,
I-
just,
So that was just kind of the opinion at the time.
I understand that. Let me go here real quick, Belgana.
Yeah, got you.
But I understand that entirely because I've played Live and Learn. Like I'm a gimmick player. I've played this map, and I do understand how it just comes across as that. But I feel like saying that a map could be RNG is like the worst possible thing you could possibly say to a tournament player as the reason for a non-batch. If you have played tournaments, you could classify literally any map in this world as RNG. Like that is the most subjective thing ever. And the fact that there was a player that could consistently do it being Maxi, already eliminates that argument on its own, in my own opinion. I like the fact that there is one player, even one player that could do it consistently, already makes me believe that this is like, it's just not grounds for it to be RNG, for it to unbatch a tournament. And also, this map got loved. It had to go through a vote for it to get loved. People like this map. When you're telling me, oh, people were complaining, now I also bring you the fact that this map got loved. It means it went through a voting and the majority of people agreed that this map is fun and should have a leaderboard. So now I also like in that same regard, I can turn back the table and tell you, like, you're telling me that this map was too RNG and was receiving a lot of complaints, and now I'm telling you that this map got loved, which means it had to receive a lot of praise, and it had to first it had to be selected, and second it had to be approved, and both things happened. So when you go back and look at the fact that now this map is even loved, how can you like tell me that this is too RNG and it's bad, like for a tournament environment? Is what I'm asking you now.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, in my opinion, I don't know much about the loved criteria and like what does a map
We
have
have
to be playable for it to be loved.
We have Love Captain here. You can speak on
Yes. Okay, so I guess my question is like, does the loved process, like for a map to be nominated as loved, does it have to be like playable? Because there's 2 B maps that are loved, right?
Those are actually playable though. Like every 2, I don't think there's like a 20,000 star map that has 0% act. Like the majority, I think I would have to dig if I could find a map that has like 0, like above 50% plays. Like every map is at least playable to the intent of the mapper. That's a better way to say it. And I would be shocked if people were voting yes in a map that has 0 audience. At the end of the day, maps should be meant for people to play, as much as mappers want to spin it. But I can maybe get back to you. I'll do some searching tomorrow after my midterm, to see if I can find the maps that are genuinely like loved but unplayable. If anybody has any examples, feel free to DM.
Wait, hello. Hello.
Can
I say something about love?
Yo, oh yeah, you're here as well.
There are only two main requirements right now: 30 favorites, and you have to be able to pass the map. If you can't pass the map, we can't love that difficulty. There are maps in the past. There are maps that are loved in the past that can't be passed, but that is like from the past. Now we have to make sure they are passable.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Live and Learn has a leaderboard, and you can actually see people are actually getting like 800 combos somehow.
Yeah, Live and Learn is a good example because it actually was not passable until I wanted to pick it for love, and the mapper had to update it to be passable.
Right. So,
sorry, really quickly.
Yeah.
Quick interjection about Live and Learn, and as someone whose team had to play that in the grand finals, or I think it was grand finals, whatever. This is kind of tying the whole idea of like RNG and things. I would argue that maps, like a map, and I'm going to use this very specific example because it's been brought up earlier in conversation. I feel like the stream practice map that was put into USC is a lot more RNG compared to every like top player who's in there than Live and Learn, because there's genuine strategy to playing Live and Learn. I don't think it's documented obviously, but word of mouth, you can change your resolution to hit certain things, that stuff. I think that is a lot more. I just feel like it's irrelevant to the pool's, like, I guess, tiltability or like whatever, unbadgeability, something like that.
Dream Practice was not USC's biggest offender, even to be honest.
Even worse. I know
like there was, yeah,
for sure.
For those that know, the guy with the dolphin in the background and the
for sure.
Oh yeah, that one. That's an RNG fest.
But the thing is, like, basically our entire point is we are worried that our map pools, as people are representing basically pooling in Xander, we are worried that map pools, people trying to do stuff like AGTT2 might get just like backfired and shot in the face for trying to do things that haven't been done before. Because I'm pretty sure like the hits on Div was also brought up at some point.
Yeah, it was.
And like go play it, man. It's actually fun. Like I at first I saw it and I had the same reaction that you guys probably had. I'm like, is this guy trolling? He can't be for real.
You want to talk about the camp?
Then I played it and I'm like, wait, this is fire.
Don't talk about camp. My team crashed out practice.
Camp is also there.
Like, there's many things that were brought up that are just so subjective for it to ever be grounds for unbadging in the opinion of like me and Chip that are poolers. This guy being literally the head pooler of OWC. Like, I think his opinion probably worth a lot here. So we're just worried that these incidents might happen in the future. I keep bringing this tournament up as a joke. I know it's dead. I'm not trying to actually revive it. But we wanted, if it died, we want it to die for a reason. And not just like, oh, he got shot, and then that's it. Because we actually completely disagree. Like, to this day, most people still disagree that this tournament should have been unmatched.
There's a couple people that think it should be unbadged, but they had very, let's just say, interesting experiences after playing Mr. Fiery Rage.
Oh, that was a crazy crash out. I'm not gonna lie.
He got recommended for it, right? Like he got tournament ban or something?
He got
1 month.
Yeah.
1 month.
It was three, right?
Oh,
No,
it was 1 month.
It was a month, which I think is fine.
What?
It's
I mean, that's
it's
fine, whatever.
I think that is like the
But yeah, we
you
just
very
wanted to-
rarely get more than a month ban unless we have significant like instances documented. The reason I will be very transparent, and because I know a lot of people said that Fiery got 1 month because he's a top player and that sort of thing. The reason you would get a month for that sort of thing in his instance is because usually with when that was given out, people were given warnings, and then we would go into the ban after it. Effectively, what happened is Fiery skipped straight past warning to a month tournament ban,
Also,
which...
Yeah. This was during the time before Fiery Rage's apology and kind of reform where people had a negative opinion on him, so the moment he, like, I see other people do the same thing, but they get away with it because they're not as, like, relevant or people don't care as much, but the moment Fiery did it, everyone just pounced on him because he was just in like a bad space in the public light.
Yeah, and especially since people were intentionally trying to get a reaction out of him when they knew that the tournament map pools were tilting him.
So I mean,
he
he's
definitely
already
made a reputation in pool
he's
feedback.
changed at least as well. So he's apologized. And,
I think a lot of people have. Dada used to be literally the worst map pool feedback user of all
you might have to ask that
time.
question to some people currently. You actually might have that. Some people might have some choice words on that statement.
I have some choice words about that I brought up in the OWC server.
I will tell you. I know what you like. What some people still think of it. He's better now.
I'm sure
he's better. That's saying something. Like, everyone has had that moment, I feel like, especially if you've played the game where you get the pool feedback. But yeah, you know, there is like, again, there's that point where you need to move on. You need to grow up. You need to stop leaving pool feedback as if, you know, your life depends on it and everyone is trying to wrong you in the universe. Because everyone has left bad pool feedback before. And I guarantee you, if you haven't said something in map pool feedback 5 years ago that you regret today, just weren't playing enough tournaments. Like, everyone's got at least one line they've sent him where they're like, wow, I would not send that today. So, but yeah, I agree. You know, it was given out, it was dealt with, it was, you know, moved through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think 1 month was bad. Like, I think 1 month was just reasonable. Like, at the end of the day, he did something bad, but I don't think it was, like, the end of the world. He didn't, like, actually go and kill anyone or, like, do anything, but I think more of the focus was obviously shifted towards like we said, we're just worried that moving forward this could happen again due to something completely subjective that we do not believe the tournament committee has the level of knowledge about pooling to make these decisions. That is ultimately what we're saying.
Yeah, and also we don't expect an answer for you because this is another like long topic that probably needs a lot more discussion. But yeah, for sure.
I mean, I can speak and say that there is not an insignificant number that like don't look upon AGDT favorably. I think that there's probably at least one or two instances where, you know, you do something and it seems really great in the moment, and you think based on the evidence presented that you know that's kind of the way that things go, and you know, inevitably hindsight it's a bitch, you know, pardon my language, but like that's kind of the saying, right? Like you really can't predict the way things are going to play out in certain scenarios, especially in unprecedented ones like that, which is why you get the controversy and the backtracking and all of the other nuances that come with things when it comes to, you know, nixing a tournament for its badge because of its pools, or the DMCA issue that came around, which if anyone wants more explanation on it, I'm happy to delve into more, to be honest, but like, because I feel like that's been another big topic, but the same kind of deal goes where, you hit that point and then you see it afterwards and it's like, well, now we need to go through and revise, and then that looks weird, so we need to revise it again, and then you try and get it to a point where you're happy leaving it, and then after you've gone through all those phases, inevitably somebody has been pissed off at every phase.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that point is fair enough.
yeah. I was just wanted to really reinforce the point. Like, what would you tell me and Chip regarding future tournaments and pools, like the subjectivity of pools?
I can only give you how I review tournaments. And I wish Stage was still here, actually, because he has a really good copy and paste, probably, of the list that he uses. But when I go through and I review a tournament, I open up the pools, I copy and paste all the links to make sure into the bot, to make sure nothing is disallowed right off the bat, blatantly. And then I will scan through and make sure there is no 18 plus content or profanity or absolutely gross things in the names. Effectively, I do the same checks that I would do when I do my loved moderation checks. I will go through, I'll look at the background, I'll look at the video really quickly. It's like it's a 5-second pass per map. The entire process takes 15 or 20 minutes for every pool in the tournament. And I'll go through really quickly and I'll make sure there's nothing disgusting. I don't look at SR, I don't look at OD, I don't look at HP, I don't look at length, I don't do any of that. I literally go through and review content, because effectively that's what we're looking for. We're, at least in my mind, I'm looking for content. I'm looking for, is there something in our all ages community that would prevent all ages from being able to participate in an unsafe manner? And that's the biggest thing when it comes to pooling, and you'd be surprised how often it comes up. I mean, background changes and even in loved and stuff too. Like, hey, you need to change this background. This is terrible. Or, this needs to go to content review. So that's how I would do it. That's how I do it. So it takes time. It's short, but.
Can I quickly ask a question kind of tied to this?
Mm-hmm.
More so as a point of privilege than anything. Is there any reason why... it's very nitpicky. Is there any reason why maps like Mirash's mindless self-indulgence map is like fine for that reason? in a sense of like badgeability?
In terms of, that one's an interesting one. I'm not entirely sure what happened there in a base sense. Usually I take the same stance that we do for a lot of other things, which is if it is ranked. And this sounds weird to say because I know what the map you're talking about, of course. It is, and as much as I find the map really fun, if it's ranked, it's technically endorsed by the game, and it's not my place as an individual user, even in the position I'm in, to just be like, no, you can't do this, because if it's ranked and it's open to download on the game, then it has been approved by a higher power, in this case the NAT, and it's gone through evals, and the BNs have okayed it and everything else. So, far be it for me, somebody who is not a good mapper, to tell the mappers what they're doing. So that I think ranked is an exception in that case, versus stuff like loved and graveyard and pending, where it's still kind of in that level of floating around and it's not confirmed. So, same thing with the DMCA rule. Like, we make exceptions for ranked and loved because effectively, if they are in a category with a leaderboard, it's officially endorsed in some way, even if the artist is not, because we just didn't, retroactively fix those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, do you have anything else to talk about this point, Rojo or Bella, or can I just say some other stuff quickly?
I'll just say one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
And this is I hate using this, but it's more so just kind of, it's a shared sentiment by other queer people in the community. It's kind of annoying when that map gets placed in a tournament and then everyone does the tiptoeing around the name and Twitch chats, and it's always super really, really annoying. And I obviously don't think it's kind of too late for anything to be changed about that. F, I will link you
I
the
will
map.
send that.
I have it.
Oh yeah, we all have
I
it.
just-
Actually,
We all have it.
Yeah,
all
they all
have
have
it,
the
yeah.
map. They all have the map. Great. It's kind of just it affects a certain part of the community, which also overlaps with the tournament community, which is obviously it's just kind of it's annoying is all. And I feel like obviously things can be changed, but I feel like going forward there should definitely be some like exceptions when it comes to ranked and like loved maps for like usable songs. Like what's that one Paraoka song that got
Slash
like
Made?
Slash
Yeah.
made.
yeah,
oh
there's
yeah.
there's a loved Psycho set that or I think it's Psycho that has that song in it still, like in a compilation. So if that were used in a tournament, would that technically be fine?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I do.
Yeah.
There's no easy way to do that, I guess. I'm sure Stage could make some addition to the bot where it would catch that sort of thing. I think that the easiest way of going about it would be if the name of the song would get filtered if you typed it in chat.
Yeah.
It's probably, and it's the same thing we do with like team names, right? Like if your team name is, and for those of you here that don't know, if you enter an explicit word in your multiplayer lobby title, it will change that word to the filtered version of it. And that's a really easy way of knowing if your team name in your tournament is probably not allowed, is if it gets filtered. So I do kind of agree, yeah, maybe maps should follow that same precedent of that. And I agree. As a commentator for probably 2 tournaments that this was pulled in, shoutouts to Dada who pulled both of them, I could not, like, you can't properly commentate that at all. Hey, check out this Mirage Nomad map. Wow.
Yeah. And again, this is just like an addendum to everything that's been being talked about. It's not like meant to like look for a rule change or anything. It's something that's affected other people who are in the tournament community, and it's just kind of annoying.
Yeah. For sure. Just a comment on the map that I submitted called Fucking Friday. That was actually considered one of the best maps of OWC last year, which is
It's
also
literally the
probably
best map ever made.
important context. That is like a legendary map. And same for the Mindless Self-Indulgence map, which is also considered to be very high quality because Mirage and the other other difficulty makers like Koguma X have super well done diffs. Yeah, I think we wrapped up this point pretty well. I just wanted to quickly gloss over 2 things semi-relevant to what we've been discussing. Firstly, to mention a long time ago, you talked about the discussion period and how you think that the roster that we provided is too OWC map pooler oriented. That's completely fine. This was actually a very temporary point we made, and actually looking at today where it was actually extremely civilized despite so many people being here, I was just worried, to be honest, that if we had a huge discussion and everyone was just trying to talk at once, it would be almost impossible to get anything done. But if things carry out like this, I don't see any problem in having a public discussion just like this again. And I'm sure that the people that I mentioned and many other people also have things to say. So I'll quickly alter that after we get through this, which is, I think, fine with Rojo as well. And the second part is, I also want to mention that we talked about how certain members have quote unquote not very good PR or have made a lot of decisions that have been seen as like almost negative or like with ill intent in the past. This is also mainly for F or Ephemeral. I'm gonna pronounce the name completely wrong. I'm sorry.
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral. Okay, awesome.
Ephemeral.
Just like how.
Just say Seagull.
Yeah.
That
Just
also
like
works.
how there are people that are seen in a negative light. I'd like to also shout out people who have been seen in a very positive light in TCOM. Stage, obviously, one of the most hardworking people in the scene. I don't think anybody has only good things to say about him. And even today, he's very mature in how he handles things. This is the same with regards to Dio, who has also been seen as a beacon of high quality in not only commentary, but also tournaments in general. And a person who does a lot of great things for the TCOM and community as a whole. And especially props to Chiliapet, because I know it takes a lot of difficulty to be this honest and willing to talk about this immediately. And you were, again, you've had your faults in the past, but you've acknowledged pretty much all of them from what I'm familiar with, which is very honorable. And yeah, it's awesome to hear that there are also good members of TCOM as well.
Yeah, I would like to add some other final notes. First of all, obviously thank Chilier for doing this impromptu session. It was just impromptu. Like nobody, like me and Chil were in the VC. We were discussing everything. Actually, like Terry crafting every message to send, and then we stopped caring and we just started talking. Because I did mention this in that chat. That chat feels so tense. Like that might be a war zone. I feel like sending every message, like it might cost somebody's life. So that's why we wanted to move to a more casual discussion. I do believe that this specific stage, or I guess this is a normal BC, helped settle that at least for a little bit for now, because it did bridge a more casual discussion between members of the tournament community and members of the tournament committee. So it did do a great job of that, and I'm glad we could have this discussion today. You know, PR, blah blah blah. Basically, I'm just glad we could talk. Like all it comes down to is I'm glad we could have a talk, because at the end of the day, that is the most important process, I would say, for people to be able to talk to you guys. Is basically all that they're asking. Like you can dump down every single request people have had to TCOM to like, hey guys, we want to talk. That is like, just having more communication will solve like 90% of the issues that we have like brought up today. Basically, some of them do have to do a lot with internal structure and stuff, but I feel like people would just be so much more understanding if you talk back, and that's why I want to create well, not me specifically, just have a space where we can have more casual conversations regarding badges, or what's badgeable, what's not, ideas for future badging requirements, how you guys are handling pooling and all of that. Like just more transparency on what you can be transparent on, because I understand that there are things that, for privacy reasons or whatnot, you cannot disclose.
Most things we can be transparent on. I could probably answer 99% of questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm pretty sure that you guys don't even handle screening, right? So like, there should be very few private information that you guys are not able to like actually be transparent on. And with that in mind, I just want to have a better place that we can have more casual conversations. Because it's what you said about the town hall, right? The event. I do agree that it should be public. We brought this up with 6 members because we thought it would be the best way to go about it for now. We didn't think it was just like, oh, only 6 of us should talk. That's for sure. Like, that's not what's on our mind. Like, I think people that know me know that I'm always like up for the people to talk, and I'm always all about, let people like say what they want to say. Like, that's what they're here for, right? So it was just like a quick kind of way to, I guess, even grab your attention. Not yours specifically, but the committee attention, and try to settle this bridge so that we can have a talk. But we in no shape believe that we are better, or like we are the representatives or anything, like maybe like of pooling, right? Because we have the entire server and stuff. But even then, like, we just think that we wanted to be the ones to take action, but we didn't stop anyone else from taking action. Like, if someone else wants to step up, someone else wants to bring their own problems, they can speak up. But it just so happens that when someone speaks up first, they kind of like see him as a leader. And now that Chip spoke up, he got 100 DMs, and that's kind of how things go. Like, he kind of went to college, came back, boom, 100 DMs from different people. And the same thing happened to me the first time I posted that one, like, I don't know, months ago. It's kind of like, it's been a while since I posted that one. I also just woke up to like 20 different DMs every day from different people. And that is just kind of how that goes, because it's like a domino effect. Someone speaks up and now everyone wants to do it. So yeah, we do talk to so many people. Like, Chip might be like, this guy reached max friend list in Discord. I just saw him delete people to add a couple before we added.
You have to say that.
He might be farming friends like he's on Facebook. But the thing is, like, we do talk to a lot of people, and we have this outreach that we do talk to a lot of people, and because of that, we know that voices are important. It's really not about us. It does benefit us, of course, because we're members of the community, but it's about the entire sentiment of the community that has been feeling like this, and someone wants to speak up. In this case, I instigated Chip to do all this for me, but I'm glad it worked out. and I hope we can have more discussions moving forward. Again, I do thank you for your time. This was like, it's 4 a.m. on a weekday, for me at least. I do have work tomorrow, and I'm sacrificing my sleep schedule for this because I do care about it. I'm sure Chip does too. This guy does not work; he's unemployed. But
hey.
in this regard, just wanted to make it clear that we do care about the community, right? And I just wanted to make it clear that we do not think we're like above, or we do not think that we don't have like a savior complex or anything like that. We were just like we're kind of mad, and we want things to be better. So we started this discussion basically. That's all it really came down to on our end. So again, I just do thank you for your time here, Chillier. I think we should kind of wrap it up a little bit. It's been like, I don't know, 2 hours of this VC, and more people keep joining. But I think a lot of this specifically talking about very specific points of tournaments should be scheduled and should be. I don't know what your idea of a public voice chat is. I feel like it would be chaotic. I feel like
it's this.
It's
except
this?
in the it's this, but in the stage channel basically, where
you like select people to like speak. Okay,
I can unmute people if they raise their hand.
Yeah, in that case, I think it's fine. I do completely agree with that. I was just like worried about the chaos that it would ensue if you just had like.
We had a plan for it. There's a reason I proposed it at the last quarterly meeting, and this is like the plan has already been set aside. Like this meeting is effectively how I wanted these to go when I initially brought up the idea. So if we keep it like this, this literally is the epitome of my idea of a monthly call.
This is great.
Like this is literally my vision.
Yeah, a tournament debrief kind of like thing. Yeah, I completely understand that. It is a good vision. I agree. It's very good. It's very good for the game. Today we couldn't really tackle everything we wanted to, but also you're probably not ready to give all the answers, especially for the community, right? You can speak for yourself, obviously, but it's hard to impromptu just come in and give answers for the community, especially when I'm pretty sure there's a lot of internal votes being held right now, and you have to wait for some answers and stuff like that. You know the drill, right? But I would like to have have this discussion too with other members. Like we had Stage today, beautiful, awesome. But we would like to talk to Yase. We would like to talk to. Well, Dio is always around, but
we want to talk to T1G. We want to.
We want to talk to T1G. We want to talk to T1G for sure.
I mean, to be fair, we said he's been a problematic statement. We were going to put a document. This is also the perfect place for him to clear his name. He doesn't even have to put anything public. If he just goes out for 1 hour, talks about, hey guys, I've done this in the past. I'm sorry, I'll clear up my act, and probably people will just forgive him. It's really not that hard.
Like, we just want to talk to more people, and we also want to make sure that if you have answers ready for us that could be publicized, things are official statements, we can just get a hold of these things, right? Because you did make an official statement today already in tournament news, which great changes, by the way, just immediate, effective, great changes. Because I did think like probably one of the main reasons for this change was I think it was Copa Chilena, right, that got their badge denied because their badge GFX was literally traveling outside of the country for like Christmas and New Year's, and they didn't really have time to design a badge, and now their tournament got badge denied because they took 18 days longer than the 60 days.
Yeah, that badge is back, by the way.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
As of yesterday.
Yeah, that would make the most sense, obviously. So I was already expecting this to be the case. And congratulations to the Chileans. They get one more badge. I don't even remember who won that. Was it Intercamming? I think it was Intercamming. But
he did. It was Intercamming.
What a sad day, man. Something should have won. But basically, we are happy with the current way things are going. We did talk to some of the members that are participating in the badge strike. Again, I do want to make this clear. People are still wanting to participate in this until they see more changes. Like these changes are fine, obviously they're perfect, but it's more about the transparency and the communication changes that people want to see before they actually decide to leave the badge strike or just end it as it is for now. So I would like to just let you know that that's like what we're looking for the most, and if we can get this transparency and communication changes, then I'm pretty sure people will be more than glad to kind of just go back to normal, basically, like, because I was actually like surprised I'm gonna give you a little more insight also on our end. Shib was organizing this with me, and then he kind of started doubting. Right, we didn't really get that many crazy replies with like super good like approvals, and then suddenly like 2 hours went by, and we like his DMs just exploded. The word actually spread like wildfire, and everyone knew, and now everyone wanted to be in on it. And to this moment, I'm pretty sure he's still getting DMs about people that are like wanting to be in the document and stuff. Like, it actually like it went insane. So on our end, we also had like our doubts because people do bring up this topic of like, how does a badge strike work when technically you're giving TCOM less work and you're taking away badges from players? But it's more like it's like a symbolic thing, right? It's less of a logical thing, and it's more like, hey, the players are like they are more than glad to sacrifice the quality standard of a tournament, like the prize that they will get for it, just to protest because they are unhappy with the current way things are going. I think that sends a really strong message of the way this community is very tied together to each other. Even though we do say there's a lot of subset of groups, and that's true. Like there's a million of subset of groups in the tournament scene. I think at the end of the day, a lot of them put the differences aside. So thank you for being a common enemy. Actually helped a lot.
This is the most unified we'll ever see the tournament community ever, I think.
Actually, that's actually crazy.
Everyone,
you were such a common enemy that people actually like. People that I do know hate each other were like, maybe not today. Just to like be on the same document and be able to like transport this message to you. So I did want to make that clear. I think that's basically my closing statement. Thank you so much for everyone that came today, and especially you, Chiller, for giving us your time. If you would like to say anything, before we wrap this up, because you should also give your closing statement.
I don't know if I have a closing statement. Shoot any more questions at me that you want before we wrap it up.
All right. Well, I think that's it for me. On my end, I'm pretty satisfied with what we have today. For other things, I would like to have more people on board. I would like to ask other members what they think and like just personal opinions, because I think these are important. But as far as it goes for me, I'm basically done here, and I should probably sleep because I do have work in a couple hours.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. You can take your leave, but good night. Honestly, I mean, well, before that, I'm also pretty much for this specific discussion. I think we've made enough points and we've covered more than enough material for an impromptu meeting, which I'm really happy with. I'll continue to get back to you on some other stuff, including the whole T1G situation, which is something that will need to be addressed, as well as I'm eager to wait for any response with regards to the last message I sent. In that if we can set up some type of public town hall meeting officially where people can be present, I think it's going to be in the best interest of everyone in the community and also best interest of TCOM for sure. But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you again to everyone here and everyone who helped support the badge strike, everyone who sent in their support. Again, it's awesome to see everyone unified and, both players, staff, hosts, and TCOM members alike. It is actually like a lot of TCOM members like reached out to me directly. They were like, yeah, I just also just agree with a lot of what you guys have to say, which is awesome. And I hope that we can see some great improvements being made in the near foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Great statement.
I'm just gonna go to bed. Good night, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.
All right. Everyone's free to go. If you want to stick around for lingering questions, feel free. I've got work in the morning, but who cares? I'm here.
Yep, I'm also going to tap out because I have a midterm in 9 hours. But thank you guys so much. And if you guys have anything, feel free to send it to me. Thank you again. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, guys.